to have that chance.
Yeah, I mean, I would, but I'm just saying. The thing is, yeah, $10 for a chance for a million, sure.
It's
You
just,
know,
it's
but
better than the lottery odds,
Oh,
and
much better, way
you can
better.
have
I don't know
fun.
about that.
You can have fun. I mean, I buy a lottery ticket every week and
I don't
donate
know
money
about
to
that.
the education fund. It
Kimberly,
doesn't go to education. We know
now that
that.
you're back,
So
I have a question for you because the sad news yesterday was Charlie Daniels' death, but there was also something that was equally startling in the newspaper yesterday. And do you have any idea what I'm talking about,
Yes, I do.
Sasha? Go ahead. Tell me.
Ennio Morricone passed away, and he was a
No.
great lover of chess.
Yes, okay. But this is not a death. This was a reemergence of the bubonic plague. Our
I
herdsman
saw that.
in Mongolia has been diagnosed with the bubonic plague. So you were talking before you left earlier about how these things, we've eradicated these things. Sometimes they come back. So now
We don't eradicate. We don't get rid of them. We put them to bed. We
exactly.
put them to bed.
That's my point.
And this
Thank
is
you
what I
so
tell
much.
people. We've never found a cure for malaria. We have never found a cure for the flu. We have never found a cure for Ebola, HIV. We just put them to bed. We put them to rest. They come back. We usually have treatments or policies to contain them. And that's what you have to do. You have to follow the policies to contain them. They will always raise their ugly head. I mean, what's the world's worst plague we ever had? Come on. It's the skin. Eat your skin.
Plague. Oh, leprosy.
Leprosy. All right. Has it ever gone away? No. Does it still
Right.
exist? Yes.
Yes.
Do we find a cure for it? No. But we contain and control it. And that's the secret. And I see Henning is here. And Nick has left the house. Oh my gosh, Nick loves Henning. Where did Nick go? Hi, Henning.
Hey, Kimberly, how are you?
Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is another amazing day. It's a beautiful thing. Nice to see you all today. Your intelligent conversation and your smiling faces.
Oh, we're talking about chess.
Great to see
One
you.
of the things I'm smiling about, and thank you, it's always the same to you, but one of the things I'm smiling about is we've started a rescue mission to get that young man back home that's stuck in the Ivory Coast. And it has just done nothing but warm my heart when I heard a team of people yesterday just literally calling each other behind the scenes saying,
Yep.
we'll figure this out. We'll get him home. So I've been glowing ever since. That's made me feel good that we were able to team up, and we're working on it. Will it happen today? Probably not, but it's got to make him feel better, right?
We delegated the task to Holmes. So, we were talking about it for a couple of days, and Holmes came out and he said, "Oh, I can solve that."
And then he had a venture capitalist watching us, and he goes, "Hey, I can get a plane." So we're sitting here going, "Okay, a chain of events has happened that has pieced together the opportunity to get this young man back home because he got stuck during COVID." So, it made me feel good. It's just that's what networking's about, right? Inspiring and just working together like you do with your tribe. I mean, so how did the 4th go for you, Henning?
In what respect?
Well, so and just celebrating, you had a movie that came out.
Well, we did. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Sorry.
We're talking about fireworks. We're talking
about happiness.
Movies. Okay,
define your terms.
Red Share Films launched its beta version of its app and online platform on Saturday morning, which is 4th of July, and several of our films are up on that platform now, which is exciting. Released finally to the public, and it went great. The app looks beautiful. Destinova, the conversation between a female and a male couple during New Year's Day, and a heartfelt conversation between those two, and a description of this insane recruitment and motivation practices of a rogue direct sales operation. and is up and available for public viewing for the first time. That's amazing. Romancery is also up and available, which is it's two friends, two troublemaker friends. One goes the way of the straight and narrow. The other one goes into a life of crime, and they get mixed up with with a bunch of mobsters. And it's a really cool kind of rock opera-esque, musically driven short film is up and available for public. The re-engineered version for 2020. And then we have America Health Yeah, which is a commentary. It really is a commentary on the state of affairs in the United States today, and really what it means to be healthy. It's a documentary. It's a cooking show. It's a health instructional. It's, as I said, a social commentary. It's all those things. That's up for public consumption and public viewing. And then finally, the feature film that we've been working on for really, it's going on 3 years now, is finally out. You can see it today. Really, the final version we've been testing over the past. Well, not we've been the really smart people involved in the software and programming and coding been testing the film over the past couple of days. We've got a great version up, and it is. I can say that the response that we got, Kimberly, from Wednesday's screening, we screened a rough version of it, and then we put up the final polished version of it. Today, this morning, and the responses have been just overwhelmingly positive, and that is really three friends, the two friends from Romancery and a third mafia princess. Now things have gotten very serious with the mobsters, and the good friend, whose name is Spencer, has to step in and decide if he's going to get involved and help his friend. And you get all these different Breakfast Club type scenarios with these teenagers. And then you also have the combination of, it's kind of like the combination of the Breakfast Club with like the Sopranos. Man. It's really too much, man. It's too much. And what is exciting to me is that this is a film that's geared towards the teen, young adult marketplace. But I tell you, the Gen Xers are raving because I'm saying this with all humility. I really didn't know what to expect. The acting, the actors really brought it. The music, Mike Manning with the acting, and James Hawthorne and Erica Green, Rebecca Mellinger, all those people that just brought those characters to life. And then the costumes with Suzette Fabre worked on the costumes, and the cars that we got that basically were brought in by our tribe, the car clubs that we connect with, and all of the things that make for this to be a very excellent film. And our editor, Cynthia Zhang, who basically, she's like a 20-year-old phenom, and she took the color and brought it like to the next level. So I say this because I want to congratulate the team, but also because this is a movie with a message, Kimberly. It's not just one message. It's probably like Alibaba. It's like the 40 Thieves. This is like Rebelistic and the 40 Lessons, right? 40 lessons. And so it goes. And then Gianluca Gibbons with his epic speech in the church and about right and wrong and decisions and how your decisions affect you. And it's just, to me, it was really cool. The response, the young group, they just get it. And we've been screening versions of this movie for 2 years almost, between Romancery and Rebelistic, Kimberly. So we know that I knew that this like young market was going to love it. We just wanted to add some more tension and some more suspense and some more fear. We wanted to get the fear element going, because we wanted to make sure that people knew, hey, you don't want to mess with these people. Stay away from these types of people, right? Because it's deadly, like seriously. And we had to show that. So I'm really glad that, because a lot of my actors who were on, their parents were watching, or their aunts and uncles, and a lot of our tribe is, Gen Xers. And I was just getting phone call after phone call about this scene and that scene and how they loved it. And last but not least, I know you have another question for me, but last but not least, on Rebelistic, it's my goal for anyone watching, including the young bucks and those of us who have been around the block, to break into your top 25 films of all time. My goal is to break into your top 25. If I can get in there, that's all.
I posted mine. I told you. I don't know if you saw me post that. I watched you yesterday. So, Henning, this is what I tell people: to be successful in this business, you got to get out there every day. You got to be in more than every day, really, more than every day, more than once a day. And Henning he's here, he's there. I think there's 3 of you. You've got twin sons. I think there's 3 of Henning. But Henning.
I got to get this in, Kimberly.
I want to know the feedback that you got from that film. All I saw was positive. How hard is that? I mean, one, that feels great, right? When you get nothing but positive. But sometimes you want some feedback to make it go to the top. Is there something how hard is it? Right? You make something perfect first time, but you yourself are probably like me. You want to make sure it's perfect, and you're looking for that feedback that just polishes it. How difficult was it, or what did it take to make it the final product that you put out?
Oh, thank you for the question. And talking about triplets, and you can't make this stuff up. Erica, well, you could, but you wouldn't. Erica Green, who plays Shay, she's the singer, the rock star singer in the movie. Okay, Erica is one of an identical triplet. I don't know how you say it. She's a triplet, and they're all identical, right? So when we had the screening, I saw 3. Erica, because she didn't tell me she was a triplet, right? And we were working together every day, and and they were all dressed the same. Right? And then at the next screening, guess what? Only one showed up, and it wasn't. She sent her sister. She couldn't make it. She sent her sister. I didn't even know.
I have to run. I have to run. I'm sorry, but I've got one statement and 2 questions for you, Henning.
Okay, question, I guess. So.
You do a great job of giving credit to your team. I really want to congratulate you because we know that it's all a team effort. But congratulations on spreading the compliments around because that's well done. And my two questions is, in music we have this term called remastering. So if I got an old vinyl record or on CD and something, if they issue it again, they say it's remastered, I'll buy it again. So is that a term that you can use in films? You're going to bring out a remastered film of your own.
Yeah, you can. You can. I would say that that Romancery is a good example of that. We put it up on YouTube just because, and we got all kinds of views and all kinds of positive comments. That helped us to make the other movies. But the version that we put up on YouTube was the basic render, the basic film, and that's what was placed up on YouTube. When we decided to re-release it outside of YouTube, so we took it off of YouTube, we decided to re-release it. We actually upgraded all of the elements that you would think would be involved in a remastering. We changed out the music. It's all different. So that's not only remastering, but that's actually changing out something that was there earlier. We colored it. I created really a process for our team to have a look and feel for our movies that's unique. And it took months and months to get to a point where I was happy with the look and the feel. And then we took that color palette, we removed the color that was originally on Romancery, and we replaced it. We replaced it with a new color scheme that I loved for the other movies. And we tested the testing came from Street Chase, which is another film that we were earmarking for the festival. So I wanted Street Chase to have a certain look. And then when I saw it, I'm like, man, if we could have this look throughout all the other films, that would be cool. It's almost like when you see a Christopher Nolan movie, like you get a feeling that it's a Christopher Nolan movie. When you see a Tarantino movie, you kind of get a feeling that you're in the Tarantino world. There's something about how they work with the color and the transitions that make it so Romancery was a and then we actually replaced a couple of scenes. and not necessarily replace. We added a couple of things that you would never even like notice, but some things that bring it to the next level, and then we re-rendered it in a cinematic manner. So yes, there is a way to remaster a film, and it is a different film than what was up on YouTube. You wouldn't notice it maybe unless you were paying attention. But here's what I love to do. I love to look at it like, hey, if you love this movie, you're going to watch it again. Mm-hmm. And when you watch it again, you're going to notice things that you didn't notice the first time. And so I'm great
like that.
All the details, and I've been studying these masters, like the Brian De Palmas and the Scorseses and Steven Spielbergs, and if you notice, a lot of those movies you watch over and over again. I mean, how many times have you seen E.T., for example?
Yeah.
If you have kids, you've seen E.T., and I got two sets. I saw it when I was a kid, and I saw it in the movies, and then I saw it with my first set of kids, and my second set of kids. I probably saw E.T. 5 times, right? So what I want to do is I want to make sure two things, and this is a little secret here. First of all, I want to make sure there are no glitches. There are no glitches, because you may not catch it the first time. I mean, a glitch meaning something that's not supposed to be there, or something that a slight shake of a camera, or a slight word that's not supposed to, or the sync doesn't go. So I want to make sure that it's flawless, because then when you watch it again, you're going to start noticing. The second thing is, my book is in this movie many, many times, and I want people to notice. The first time you might notice it. Wait a second, is she holding the Dirt Merchant's book? Oh my God! Oh, wait a second, is that a movie poster in the background as a Dirt Merchant? Are these? Did he actually place his own movie poster of the movie in the? I want to kind of give people little treats for when they watch it again. They're going to notice things that they didn't notice. And last but not least, on this topic, if you getting back to the question, yes, you can remaster. Yes, you make it better, but you also make it. You take out the things that really bother you as a director, and you add some things that can replace that. And I think it's definitely apropos.
Because I've heard the term director's cut. This isn't my second question, but the director's cut is a little bit different from what you're talking about, though.
Well, yeah, director's cut traditionally has been where somehow the director lost control of his project, or he didn't have in his contract that he has a final cut, right? And then the director is like, the director directs the movie, and then goes on to another project, and they watch their movie, and they're like, wait a second, this isn't my movie. I want to recut this, right? So then the studio is nice enough to say, okay, Miss Director, you can recut it in your own way. We'll call it the director's cut. Nice. And a lot of times what happens, I don't let that happen. And that's where, again, those of you out there who are filmmakers creating content, any kind of content, it's your project. It's your project. So do what you can to stay in control of the project, because you want to have the creative control all the way through. Michael Selzman and my mentor, and also Ken Levine, my mentor, whom Kimberly knows, they told me when we first started out, and I might have shared this with you guys, this is your story. This is your story, and you're the one who needs to tell it. And there's a lot of people that are going to come in and try to get this thing off track from where you're headed. We love your story. We read your book. We want to do this, and make sure that you are in alignment with that as you go along. And there have been several times where people have come into the tribe, and maybe with good intentions, maybe with bad intentions, and try to move the movie into different directions, right? And I always remembered what Ken and Michael told me, is to put my foot down and say, no, I appreciate the input, but we're going to go this way. And so you won't see a director's cut of any of my movies, because what you're seeing is the director's cut, even though I didn't direct the first two, right? But it really is the final version is really, it's congruent with the true stories that we're telling. And it's also congruent with the characters. The characters don't, you ever watch a movie where the character all of a sudden does something uncharacteristic and it throws you for a loop? Like that to me is like, you don't want to do that because you just confuse the audience. And if you don't create a whole nother storyline based on how that person just reacted,
Right.
then
Right.
they're not going to come back. They're not going to recommend, right? Because like I don't know what this character is all about. So the director's cuts are very different. And what we have found is that if the director, which is yours truly now, I didn't direct the first two, I directed the remainder, and I will continue to. There's a couple projects that I may hand off, but you're seeing the director's cut when you see it. You're not seeing there'll be no other version of it.
So that's your craft that you're releasing. Right. My second question was, did you see Kimberly yesterday? Did you watch any of the shows where Kimberly was on IBM TV yesterday?
Oh God,
I have not.
Okay. Because I have to tell you, the first time she came on,
the cherry tree.
That's all right. I'm not busting you. I'm just saying that when she first came on, I typed a little chat message to her that said, wow, because she was wearing this spectacular outfit. And then she put her hat on and it just blew me away. And I thought of you immediately. I said, if you had seen her in that getup yesterday, you would have already written her into a next movie.
Well, let's just send me the link. I'll watch it. I got time. I got nothing but time today, right?
Yeah. It's just that time when you put on the hat, Kimberly. You got to get that part to him.
I was goofing off, but it's my Audrey Hepburn hat.
Well, there you go. No wonder I loved it.
I love her so much. She was so eloquent. And anytime someone talks about going on vacation, I put that hat on.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Jim.
Kimberly, I want to see that link. So please send it. So you asked about constructive criticism and getting your project to where it needs to be, and again, it's so important to anyone doing anything creative, and whether it's music or films or. I was a public speaker for many years, so I have a lot of what I did for many years prepared me for this. So being a speaker, telling stories, basically the best speakers are storytellers. The best ministers that you follow or that you'd love to hear at church on Sunday, Billy Graham and those guys, those guys were storytellers, and they take those Bible stories. Jim Rohn used to take those Bible stories, and even though he wasn't a minister, he'd take those Bible stories and just take you along on a journey. Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, all those guys, and several people who you probably don't recognize their names, like Larry Thompson, Bobby DePew, Larry Huff, David Soto. A lot of people that you might not know, they're not household names, but these are people that I learned from and telling the stories. And when I was a speaker, I always wanted input. I would always record myself, and I would criticize the way I did it. When I went to Mexico, Kimberly, and decided to move to a resort in Mexico and speak publicly for a living in Mexico without knowing Spanish, that's pretty bold, right? So what I did was I memorized the speech that I needed to make in Spanish, right? And then I would have my friends who were my fellow speakers. We would go on these tours and go to different places and speak, and they were Spanish speakers, and I would have them take notes and give me criticism of how I was pronouncing something, or did I use the right word? Maybe it's not a word that's popular in Mexico. Maybe I'm using a word that's popular in Argentina and should be using a different word. So I always had that, and that's something that I learned from the old guys way back, is that you have to be open to criticism, otherwise you can't improve what you're doing. And so many people, from there, then I learned the language, and then I became better and better until finally I could do a 6-hour seminar in Spanish and keep people interested the whole time, and really not have my lack of Spanish being my first language be an impediment to the communicating the message. And so when it came time to start working on these movies, I had to swallow some serious humble pie, because I had to start over in a medium that I didn't really know, but I had the right principles, I think, going in, or the right mindset that I've got to get help. And it's tough. It's tough. The first cut of Rebelistic, man, I got so much. It was so bad. It was so bad that like people, I could tell that people were like, even, I'm talking about people who were like, don't have a conscience. Like they're going to tell you the truth no matter what. Filmmakers. And I went to the top people that I know, people who make great movies, right? And they just said, man, this thing needs work and needs a lot of work. And here's what you need to do. And boom, boom. And it was hard to do that because you work on something, you spend the money, and then, you know, you get to the point where you're going to show it to somebody. They didn't like it. They didn't like it at all. Okay. At all. But they were also kind enough and smart enough to show me the specific things. Right. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to embarrass anyone else. And also respect people's privacy. I'm talking about big time names in the industry. Look at this film and like, look, you need to add this. You're missing this. You're all confused with this storyline. The scenes are all discombobulated. Read this book. Get it. Take another script. Take another screenwriting course over here, and then come back to me with another version. Right. And so it's so important to take that criticism, and we're all human. We all take things personally, especially if you're creating something, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and then somebody doesn't like it. Man, that's hard to do. But there's no other way. And if you study and again, I made it a study. If you're going to get into whatever industry you're going to get into, make it a study, and become a student first. And that's why I didn't direct the first movie. I didn't direct the second movie. I didn't have any official role except producer on either, and writer, obviously, on both the films. But I wanted to learn from these guys that were in, and I purposely hired young directors that were in their 20s because I wanted to be involved in the current cultural communication and their mindset in creating the visuals, right? And that was also humble. Imagine, you're hiring somebody that's half your age to take your story and bring it out. So it involves trust, it involves humility, and involves learning. And I watched what these guys did, and I'm taking my courses. And what I learned from some of the top people, and I study all of them from Spike Lee to Alfred Hitchcock to, you name it, as we mentioned earlier, De Palma, Scorsese, Tarantino, all those guys. And we go back to the beginning. I always would go back to the beginning, and they had to have like these failures happen before they got to be like household names. And so I didn't mind it, but I still wanted the original movies to be really good, even though I knew they wouldn't be probably maybe my best work, but I wanted them to be really good. So long answer again to a simple question, you have to be open. And then once you take the input and then you apply what you take, then your mind opens up and you see what these people were trying to tell you. And I remember my first mentor, I talk about him a lot in other programs. I'm not going to mention his name here today, but he runs an established indie production company that makes award-winning movies. And he's been running that for years. And that was one of the first people that saw the first cuts of the movie, the first original versions, and he said specific things to me that now when I watch this version, when I'm watching it, like his words are coming back to me, like he told me to do this, and I'm like, man, I was so proud of myself that look what I did here, and look what I did there, and look how I arranged this, and so you get a sense of satisfaction, and then when you go back, it's like, okay, there's a scene in Goodfellas. It's a terrible analogy, but there's a scene in Goodfellas where the guy comes back from prison, and one of the gangsters comes back from prison, and they're having a celebration, and then like the Joe Pesci character, right? The guy come back from prison says, man, you used to give the best shoe shines. You used to give the best shoe shines. Remember that saying? Those shoes were so shine when you used to shine my shoes. And he's getting worked up. And he's getting worked up now because Pesci's now a real bona fide gangster, right? So he's getting worked up. And then finally he can't take it anymore. And he says, I don't shine shoes no more. It's almost like, I know that's terrible, but it's almost like that. Like now I can go back and say, I don't shine shoes no more. Now look at what's up, right? And we can now have a different conversation without being violent with each other. The climate. So there you go.
You're not shining shoes anymore. You're making films, and
shining shoes.
I don't shine shoes no more. But the thing is that you have to shine those shoes for a while before you can really appreciate the value of a shoe shine, but also to know what a good shoe shiner is. So there's a lot going on there, and I think that accepting the criticism the way you did it, because I was explaining to the guys this morning, some of the hardest criticism in my career came a few years ago, and the guy just gutted me out. But I stood there and took it. I didn't. Everybody, my team thought, oh my God, they were going to go attack him. And I go, no, this is awesome. But it hurt a little bit. But at the end of the day, it made me a better person because I took everything he said, because he was a professional at what he did. And like you were saying, you take that and you build on it, right? Because they know what they're talking about. And love sometimes doesn't come out like you think it should. It doesn't sound like I love you. But that's true love when somebody comes and tells you how to become a better person, right? Even if it hurts. And I appreciate you sharing that story.
100%. Thank you, Kimberly. And also, it's also on the flip side of that, understand also that there are certain things that are like constructive, technical criticism on technique and on the actual product. Another is someone's opinion, whether they like it or not. You got to also be careful not to fall into the trap. And that's when it goes back to the original advice that my mentors gave me, which was stick to the story. This is your story. Tell it this way, because some people don't like the story. And so there's nothing I can do about that. If you don't like the story, then, I got nothing for you, because this is what story we're going to tell. And that's where you differentiate something that is pure, that is true constructive criticism with something that's somebody's opinion. It may not be for them. And that's where earlier on I would really on the storyline and on the flow of the story and how it keeps people's interest, I would only listen to the 20-somethings. I wouldn't listen to the older people, right? Because I'm saying this movie's not for you, right? Then when I circling back to what I said earlier, when I'm getting a response back from the older group, really, which I'm in that group, so I'm not saying that they're old. I'm saying older, right? And the response being so positive, I'm like, man, did I really do this? Did I really only listen to the input, the creative input from the storyline or from the interest level of the young group? And did that actually help me to make it better for the older group? And I think that it did, because it takes people back to that time in their lives when they're just starting out and making these decisions, kind of like what the Breakfast Club did for us. I keep bringing that up because it's the most similar in terms of you can watch the Breakfast Club now and it will bring you back to when you were a kid because of the things that you were feeling. And then by keeping the set and the costumes 80s, and keeping, and we go right into the phone and they're dialing the phone, right? Or then they pick up the phone and we see it's and the pager, the pager going off, beep, 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 right? It's like, the younger group really love that because they love kind of the vintage, throwback. But then the rest of us, we're like, it brings us back. The old cars, the outfits. You mentioned about the Bella character. I don't know if you noticed, she's always in every scene. She's got like a hot outfit on in her hair, and then
big hair,
and big hair, and the big look, and it's something that by really focusing in on my audience, we were able to actually expand the audience, if that makes sense. And that was not the intention.
But you pivot sometimes to make it that way, right? So go ahead, Ankit.
So I would like to know that whenever you come up with a movie, there's a lot of versions of the climax, and then you decide that okay, we'll go with this version, and that you showcase to the world. But what happened to the old versions now? Because what happened is that maybe a movie can be released with one climax, but because of OTT platform, we can have multiple versions on OTT, and people would like to know the different aspects of it, and maybe they have different audiences because some people don't like that climax which you have shown on the movie, but there are a lot of other climax as well which can build up a movie now. And also, secondly, nowadays what I've seen is that, especially in India, once the climax is there, once the movie is about to end, they create some kind of engagement that they are coming up with a series 2.
Yeah.
So we believe in all.
That's a very good. If I'm reading your question, first of all, the how to end the movie is like it's the funnest part of making the movie, in my opinion. That's the funnest, right? How you end it.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of having alternate endings. And I'll tell you why. Not that I don't think it's good, but for my movies, it probably won't work too well because, to your second question, I'm setting people up for another volume, right? So, but I don't want to leave them on a cliffhanger. See, it's very fine line because what bothers me also, if there's a part 1 and a part 2, if I'm not satisfied at part 1, I got to watch part 2 to enjoy part 1. That bugs me, right? I don't want to do that. And in Back to the Future, they did it really well, where the movie ended, but at the very end, you see kind of a prep for the next one. And Mission Impossible does it. You know, they didn't really follow up on but at the very end, he gets another mission or whatever, right? And so, ending the movie is the most fun and sometimes the most challenging. But I would say this, and probably the alternate endings won't work because if you make it different, then you got to change a whole nother movie to make it different, right? So, but first of all, in these films, we want to make sure the message is clear at the end. That's one of the goals in ending it. We want to make sure that the message of the movie is clear and that the hero wins out. You've got to see the hero winning out because the hero has gone through all the challenge. You got to see him good. Another mistake that writers make sometimes, trying to be different or trying to do something off the wall. And I appreciate people wanting to be unusual and kind of go against the beaten path. But if I'm watching a movie all the way through and the guy's getting beat up all the way through, if you watch Rebellistic, I mean, this guy everybody's against him. They're calling him names. No one's on his side, right? Even the guy who's trying to help is not on his side. The gangsters are treating him badly. The girlfriend's treating him badly. The friends are treating him badly. No one wants him to do what he's got to do, right? And then in the end, you got to give him his happiness, right? And that's what helps the audience to love the movie because you're giving them satisfaction in the end. And secondly, is that you want to wrap up any of the stories that you've been telling because there's the A story, there's the B, C, there's all in this movie. There's 6-7 things going on if you notice from beginning to end. And when you watch it a second time, and I encourage you to watch it a second time because you're going to appreciate all the sub stories that are going on. And a lot of these smaller stories are continued in other films, and that's what is so much fun for me. Like I know, hey, Bella's going to say this, this, and this, and watch. You don't even know it here, and it does. But you'll notice in the third movie that hey, that has meaning, right? And so you create. But if you just tell this, you create those sub stories and don't wrap them up, then you leave the audience feeling like, man, I got to watch 10 more movies to find out what the heck is going on with Bella. Come on, I don't want to do that, right?
Hey, Henning. Because I was just wondering because I think that some of the best movies out there are those movies like y'all were alluding to earlier that are timeless. There's such great movies that it doesn't matter whether you watch them now or you watch them 50 or 30 or 40 years ago, or whether your folks watched them way back when. Like to me, one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life, the classic Christmas movie. It's very timeless. It's definitely something that folks can relate to at all times, but then on a more current kind of time, but not that current. I was also a big fan of Injustice for All because, of course, we all deal with justice and things of that nature. So they're oftentimes current. And then the other thing that I'm thinking that your movies are probably going to be very much that way is I like those movies that have chapters and they got a lot of chapters in them, but you don't have to watch one chapter to get chapter 4. If you jump in the middle at 4, you can still get a full movie and you don't feel like you got to watch 1 through 4 in order to get to 4, because that's sometimes where I get frustrated with those long movies that got multiple chapters and you got to watch 1, 2, 3, and if you don't watch 1, then you don't know what's going on in 4. I'd rather watch the kind of movies, and it sounds like that's what you're creating, those kind of movies that you can literally pick it up on, say it's a 10-part series, you can pick it up on number 9 or number 10, and it might push you to want to go back and watch the other 8 or 9, but you don't have to like feel like you've got to go back and watch from 1 to 9 to get there.
Right, absolutely accurate in that assessment. I'm glad that you brought that up about the keeping the stories in their own film. In other words, what I did, and again, and to your point also with It's a Wonderful Life and Injustice for All, It's a Wonderful Life is a really good example. I mean, that guy goes through he's beat up. You got to give him his happiness in the end, and that's one of the reasons we love that story, because of the happy feeling. He's unhappy. I haven't watched it in a while, but if I remember correctly, he's unhappy most of the movie, and then in the end, he becomes he gets his happiness, and that's one of the reasons you love it, because you're feeling all of his pain, and then in the end, he gets his happiness.
Definitely, you feel that, and then the other movies that I sometimes think that I really enjoy are the movies, like you said earlier about Breakfast Club, and I'm a fan of Breakfast Club as well. Also, I'll admit it, I'm a fan of Pretty in Pink. But those kind of movies oftentimes bring you back to like a period of time that you might not have even been part of, but they just kind of like give you like that feel. Like I'm a big fan of what some people would consider buddy movies. So like I remember Big Chill and Secaucus 7, and both of those were movies that definitely kind of got you in that spirit of what was going on around the 60s and the 70s and that era of everything, but they were buddy films. So I enjoyed those kind of like buddy natures that were going on. Of course, there was some, like any relationships, there was some breakups going on, there was some other things going on, but it was really at the end of the day a big buddy film. And the same with Thelma and Louise.
You mentioned all kind of good ones, and like I said, I'm going to get in your top 25. I want you to come back on next week, because we're going to get you your tickets today. Your tickets later on today. I want you guys. Let's come on and have without spoiling it for people. I'm trying to have the conversation without spoiling it. But as far as back to Anka's question on the endings. First of all, you want to give your audience that satisfaction with your main character, right? Second of all, communicate the message that you're wanting to communicate. Okay, that's important when you wrap it up. Third, no cliffhangers. No, don't do that to me. Don't make me go to the next. Unless you're going to start. Why don't just make a 3-hour movie and I'll watch the whole thing.
Binge watch it, exactly.
And then last but not least, you need to wrap up those. You need to wrap up those sub stories. And what we did, again, try not to give it away. What we did was towards the end, there are multiple endings of things that you go from one to the next to the next. So each sub story ends and doesn't linger, and so that is important in the end with the end of the movie. And that's what in the earlier versions we didn't have that, and just because I didn't know that these things were so important and how to keep when you watch this film. If we achieved our goal, you're wanting the next scene. You're just like, everything builds and builds and builds and builds, and you're wanting to know what happens next, and you're wanting to know what happens with this character, and you're seeing. And each film you're giving, we're again doing our best. If we're successful in the end of giving you a new set and a new set of really cool cars and new costumes and a great new song, and so we're giving you all kind of other things in the end as well. So we're giving, and then at the end. What we want to do is we want to give you as an audience the satisfaction of closure, closing the loop on all these characters. And here's when we don't do it. This is my last little trick, and I'll open up for whatever next question. Here's when we don't do it. Sometimes we bring a character in, and that character just does something strange and unique, and you notice it, but you forget it all about it. And that character, when I do that character's come back in another movie. So, and a good example of that is Ruby. Ruby is a really good example in Rebelistic. When Ruby comes on, you'll see that she comes on and you're like, what is Ruby doing here? And all of a sudden Ruby's gone. And if I started to create a story about Ruby, then then I gotta add 15 more minutes to the movie. I can't do it, right? Yeah. So we want Ruby to make her appearance, make an impression, and then later when you watch another one of the movies, you go, there's Ruby. I remember her. What's she all about? And then you kind of go from there.
So it sounds to me like, and I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, but it sounds to me to some degree, and correct me if I'm wrong, but do you remember the character Radio from one of Spike's movies? It sounds like Ruby's almost like that kind of character, the character of Radio from one of Spike's earlier movies and everything.
Yeah, but Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing, he was he had a beginning, middle, and an end. So he was more of a character. I'll give you an example. If you've seen Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
You remember the female taxi driver for Bruce Willis's character?
Okay. I remember that character.
She had a very interesting name, and he commented on her name. She was in one scene, and then you never heard from her again. And I was interested in why he did that, and I researched it, and that's a character from a comic book. That's a comic book character. And he was going to do something with the comic books. He never did it, but that's a similar idea. You remember? I always will remember her. I remember that female. She's what is it like to kill a man, right? And when she said, you're like, who is this, right? This stunning Colombian taxi driver that picks this guy up in the middle of the night, right? And then she's gone. You don't see her again. So it's similar to that, but. He never brought her back in another movie, but he's not doing volumes pretty much. So that's the idea. One little scene, make it memorable, and then we'll see you in another movie.
What are your thoughts on interest groups and things of that nature? Because I'm part of the Black Filmmakers Collective, which is out of Hayti Heritage Center, which is African American Cultural Arts Center. We have different sessions, but some of the sessions are people giving their input. So like somebody might give a short or a scene, and then they're getting constructive criticism. But I'm just wondering if you ever did those and what your personal opinions are of those kind of like and I use them. I know they use them like for voting and other things, but I call them those work sessions where the filmmaker would show their work and get some feedback, often from fellow filmmakers, but not always. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on those and whether they work for you.
I didn't know that you were part of that group. I'm glad we're having this conversation. It's great because I'd love to participate in any way with you guys on any discussion. If you're referring to cultural or ethnic or racial discussions, if that's what you're talking about in terms of interest, I am very interested in talking about those themes. I have. In these stories, I was very careful to be true to the history, and also be conscious of the stereotyping that happens when you tell historical stories. And I got a lot of input on this from a lot of different people, and I believe that because we spent so much time thinking about it and being cognizant of it, we came to a place where any racial group would probably, first of all, be offended at some point in the movie, but also would love it anyway, if that makes sense, right? They'd love it anyway because we don't keep going, right? Somebody may make a comment, but it stops and then you get back to the story. And the comment is something that would normally happen in a conversation, but we don't continue. Another thing that's important, and I did this in the novel very specifically, the gangsters are all kinds of they're all mixed in terms of there's Irish gangsters, there's Italian gangsters, there's Jewish gangsters, there's black gangsters, there's white gangsters, there's Puerto Rican gangsters. The gangsters now, but it also is the history. It's the history. Back in the 80s, when the mafia was at its peak of power in New York, which is where all this takes place, New York, New Jersey, it's all, you watch The Sopranos, the New York mafia and the New Jersey mafia, all that, the connection is intimate. It's not really differentiated. And all of the mobsters and the different factions, they all work together somehow. They were all connected somehow. And see it in The Sopranos, which The Sopranos is based on a real family in New Jersey. If you don't know the history, they changed a lot of things, but if you learn the history, you know who the Sopranos is based on, right? And very realistic. Sopranos was a good show to me in terms of its quality. Obviously, won all the awards, realism, and James Gandolfini, brilliant actor. But the Sopranos had no redeeming characters at all. There was nobody rooting for, and that to me always bothered me. So I always looked at The Sopranos as a comedy, like a dark comedy. If you can accept that this movie is a dark comedy, then you can at least laugh at it. But I
saw that Angus got his hands up, but I got a quick comment to add to you, and then I want to hear what Angus got to say. And this is actually going toward Nick as well. But one of the greatest movies, and there's actually a movie twice that my dad called me and my younger brother to watch the movie. And two of these movies are actually going to surprise you. One of them might not surprise you as much, but my dad, I remember he called us over because he wanted us to watch The Bucket List because he thought that was a great movie. At the time, he just turned 80, so he's probably, whenever that movie came out, he's probably like maybe around 70 or late 60s because that movie's been out now a number of years. So, but he just thought that was a great concept of trying to like live the life and do those kind of goals. I know a friend of mine actually doesn't like to call it a bucket list anymore because that implies that you're about to kick the bucket. So he just likes to call it the list, things that he wants to do in his life and everything. But then another movie that he called us, so both me and my younger brother off to watch, is a movie that folks forget is actually an adult movie. I mean, it's known as a kid's movie. It's got a great actor in it that plays a major role in it. But in all reality, if you watch the sub-themes, Shrek is very much of an adult movie because if you watch the sub-themes and what's going on in that movie, there's a lot of things that are being covered and some of the things that I know you try not to cover in your movies that are like sub-themes that they're hoping that the kids miss because they were trying to target two audiences. They wanted the kids to enjoy the cartoon aspect of it, but they had some somewhat adult-themed humor in there as well for us adults to catch because there was definitely some adult themes that were thrown in there.
Yeah, well, again, I think that to your point, our marketplace is Shrek is a really good example of how you can take a movie that is made for kids and make it appealing to the older generation. Because again, I had my two stints with Shrek, right? I got two sets of kids. So I watch all these kid movies. I got to watch them twice, right? Otherwise, you're a bad parent. So Shrek is great because they had the music and then the very adult themes going on with Shrek himself. And even in Shrek 2 and Shrek 3, Shrek and Donkey, their friendship is very mature. The dialogue is very adult dialogue, and it keeps your interest as an adult. And the movies that you would not want to watch with your kids are the movies that don't address that. And that's where, again, it's brilliant filmmaking. That's why Shrek is one of the biggest of all times. There's several others that do that. To finish up the theme on diversity, so I would love to have conversations about this, but I believe that like my team and I got my actors involved in this too. I got black actors. I said, hey, is this too much? Or I got, the Puerto Rican actors. Are we taking things too far here? The Italians, because I'm mostly Italian and I grew up around all the Goombas. So I kind of speak for the Italian side of it, right? Is it too much? Did I go too far? And you try to get that balance. And so, so what I did was I created different characters in different ethnic groups that if you notice, if there's a character that's a criminal who's a certain ethnic group, there's probably another character that's the same ethnic group that's not a criminal, that's probably a good guy. And the girls are pretty much, in Rebelistic, we leave them neutral. But in other movies, some of the girls are evil. And so we make sure, okay, if there's somebody evil here, we want to see. Let's see if we can, if the good character can be maybe the same ethnicity. So we don't say, well, all so and so's are this, or all so-and-sos are that. And I base everything on true characters. So I may bring a character in from that's not related to the story and create a character based on that. So I would love to have those kind of conversations with filmmakers, especially those who are telling historically accurate stories, that to stay true to the history, but there's ways to do it where you don't offend people and you can still tell the story accurately. It's impossible. Most of my movies have an Italian mafia connection, okay? Because the Italian mobsters were connected with the bank robbers. My friend was one of the bank robbers growing up. One of my friends growing up, that's the baseline of the story. And you can't get away from a crime story in New York in the 80s without talking about the Italian mafia. So I made sure that the motivational speaking character, played by yours truly, is Italian. So you can't tell me, and his name is Banda, right? And Banda is an Italian name. So there's so many Italian gangsters in this movie, but the main motivational speaker character is Italian. So you can't tell me that we're just we try to do those
stereotyping bad guys. You made the Italians look really, really bad because they look gangster in that movie. So.
Well, but I'll tell you what. Hold on, one second. I'll tell you what. Every gangster, we got Puerto Ricans, we got Jews, we got Italians, we got black, we got Irish. When you see Tiago's father in Hit or Twist, and McManus, the Irish guy, they're all mean. They're all mean. So there you go.
Well, AntKit actually has a company in India that they take your characters and make them virtual reality superheroes.
Oh, well,
So we got to introduce this group to you because in they show the esports and whatever they're doing over there. Actually, the revenues from those crazy video games today exceed all the money that Hollywood brings in.
Well, I'm open to having that conversation. I'd love to.
Yeah, and really should introduce this lady to Henning because
that's what I was
he can take his
about to ask.
and make him virtual reality
what they do
superstars.
is they create a movie and then they create an ecosystem behind that movie. Keep on doing the movies because there's a lot of big business. It's not about the storyline. It's more about the business and commercials, and then they keep on doing the same thing so that the video games, merchandising, the ecosystem should run parallelly, and that's how they built up in some series about all the movies. But again, my question for Henning is that if you are casting one of the superheroes or one of your heroes in another movie, before super hit, now something happened in the personal life of the actor. Something happened which is disturbing or which is little negative. Would you still cast this guy, or you change the guy or cast someone else?
Well, that's a question with an answer that's going to require more time than we have because I got to just show the trailer and jump off. But I want to continue with that conversation. Maybe we'll talk about that next week when I'd like to do kind of a book club next week on the movie, and where each of your bring people on that watched it. Only bring people on that like it. If they didn't like it, don't bring them. Because I don't want to talk to them. So. But what I like to do, I want to address that, and I think I can show the trailer real quick so your group can do it. And lastly, I want to do a call to action. We're going to send you the code with the tickets that you can scroll it in your screen. We're going to leave it on for a few. Okay, Kimberly. So you can go and as I want to give you guys the movie. I want that to be a gift for you guys letting me come on and tell my stories and everything. So your audience will be able to watch it, and then on next Tuesday we can maybe talk about it and get feedback or just have a discussion on some of the themes without giving away the storyline to the rest of the people. Is that okay?
I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, Henning. That's for sure. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it.
You'll have that today, and then thank you. You'll have that today, and just you can. You don't need to check with anyone. You feel free to run the code and the link in your scrolling for your group and share it with whomever that you feel is necessary for IBM TV, and then go from there. And we'll see how long to keep it on. Okay, maybe we'll give people through the weekend to watch it, and then it'll turn off on Monday. Okay.
That sounds like
Okay.
a great plan.
Okay,
Just to
good.
let
So
you
that's
know
cool.
what Enki was talking about. Esports is very big because I know even here a friend of mine did an esports tournament in Durham, and it was just amazing the popularity. So you might need to get that virtual character at some point and just
Hey,
incorporate what Enki does
I'm
into what you
open,
do.
man.
And that whole gang. And by the way, New Jersey's not the only gang area. Durham has got a little bit of gang history as well. Frank Mathis was actually from Durham, North Carolina.
Well, I
Again,
want to talk to you some more because there's so much to do. I got now that now that this movie is finished, I'm ready. I'm ready to come out of the the darkness into the light.
Well, Henning, I've been just trying to introduce you to some really great people that we have coming on here. But let's do your trailer,
Sure.
and then get the code up for me to share all week, and we'll do a book club next week or a movie club.
Let's do it.
And
Let's
then
do
let's
it.
do
Okay.
it. All right. So you got
let's see
the
if we can
trailer?
do this. I think I've become an expert at this.
All right.
Okay. So
You're
you should be seeing my screen pretty soon.
And we have Zach here too. He's one of
Hey,
our.
Zach, how are you? Good to see you again, bud.
Zach will send you. Zach would be great to do a movie review. Look at his background back there. He's a kid at heart. So.
All right. Do you guys see that's? Do you guys see my screen now? I'd love to do it, Zach. You guys see my screen?
I see it here. I need to add it. There we go.
Does it say RevShare Films Presents?
It sure does.
Okay, here we go, guys.
Let's rock it.
Hope you enjoy it.
This little thing you call decisions.
I have a hard time hearing.
Tell me what's you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and get out of the share. All right. I'm out of the share. All right.
Yeah,
I'm going to get out of the snake pit and I'm going to go.
See you next week. We'll do a movie review. And I'm going to have a really big question for you next week.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you tell me in advance so I can prepare my answer.
I am.
Thank you.